Hi everyone, this is Mubun Patrick, the general agriculturalist. Today we are going to learn about the scenery of the female maize reproductive system. So now let's get started. We all know to say even in maize we have got the male parts as well as the female parts. But the area of interest today is on the maize female reproductive system, or rather the maize female silk. So the maize female silk is known as the plant's reproductive mechanism, which is responsible for capturing windborne pollen and guiding a pollen tube to the ovule, or what we call the potential kernel, for fertilization. So now what we have to know is that each silk connects to one ovule, and now we need to know to say a successively pollination causes that specific silk to stop growing and detach as the kernel develops. So this is just how the the female maize silk is. So and now let's know about the mechanism of the process, or the mechanism of the parts. So now what we have to know is that the process involves several key steps, but for the area of time I'm going to share with you about four. So now there is what you call emergency and receptivity. So this is just where the silks emerge from the tip of the developing ear, or that thing which you call as the cob of the maize, with those silks at the base emerging first and those at the tip emerging last. So now that exposed portion which you see is what you call the stigma, which is covered with fine stick hairs, which are also called the trichomes. Now those they help to capture pollen grains from the air. So silks are receptive to pollen for about 6 to 10 days. So because I usually see many people playing with those hairs of that cob, that is not good because we are disturbing the pollination and the fertilization. So now let's understand something again after emergency and receptivity. Pollen capture and germination. So wind disperses pollen from the male tassels, those tassels of the maize, at the top of the plant. It is released about 2,000 or millions, so that pollen grains are being released in millions. So at once, when pollen grain actually when it reaches on the silk there, it will definitely germinate. So now that journey can take about uh, 15 to 25 hours, somewhere there, 15 to 25 hours, and now which means the fertilization will finally take place. So now let's talk about the third part, pollen tube growth. So when the pollen grain begins to germinate there on in the silk, what will happen is that there is a part which is going to be developed, which is what you call the pollen tube. So the germination, or rather the germinating pollen grain tube, produces uh, some kind of a tube which is very long, which goes rapidly down the length of the silk, which acts as a highway or the transmitting tract, which is the pollen tube that navigates the intercellular space of the silk's hair cells to reach the ovule at the base of the ear. A journey, as I said, that can take about 15 to 25 hours. So, fertilization in the cell wall changes. When the pollen tube transports to, so what we should know is that that pollen tube, it transmits with it two sperm cells there, of which one sperm cell will go and fertilize the ovule, and now the other sperm cell will go and fertilize the egg cell, which will form the embryo, and now the other sperm cell will go in the central cell, which forms an endosperm or the food source for the seed. And this process is what you call double fertilization. After pollen tube transverses a section of the silk, the cell walls in that area will become rigid. Why becoming rigid? It inhibits the growth of other potential pollen tubes to prevent what you call the pollen spermy. Pollen spermy, in other words, it is when many sperm cells enters one pollen tube. So, and as a result, they go and fertilize one ovule, which is very bad in the fertilization process. And now it will slow down the silk, also the silk elongation. Finally, the senescence or the wilting of the hair cells of the hairs, or rather the silks, and also the canal development. Once fertilization is complete, the silk connected to that specific ovule will dry and senescence, or rather it will dry. It is just the other way, what you call senescence. So now after that happens, they will turn brown, eventually detach from the developing canal. So unpollinated silks always remain green, moist, and continue to elongate for a period, which is an indicator that pollination has not taken place. So now there are few things which I want you to know. The environmental stressors which can actually disturb pollination. We can talk of drought, extreme heat. So these are some of stressors which can actually uh, interfere to pollination. So as a farmer, let's make sure that always we give time for those tassels to pollinate our female maize, so that we get the seed all we need, or rather the variety all we need. So this is Mubun Patrick. Please don't forget to share, to like, and to, so that you should learn more and more, because every time I'll be posting some new things. So thank you.